Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
It is enough. We cannot continue to lose 180, 200 people in our families and communities every month.
But poison drugs still are killing hundreds of people in BC a month. The desperate plea from BC's coroner for a safe supply now. Also.
And I can't sleep. I can barely eat, and I'm just so worried.
QR code chaos. A BC social worker says she's been put on unpaid leave even though she's fully vaccinated against COVID-19. And
I would advise leisure travel to not happen.
despite major progress on crippled highways, BC's transportation minister says this is not the Christmas to head to and from the interior.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Anita is away tonight. The deaths just do not stop. BC's chief coroner says more people were killed by poison drugs in October than any month in our province ever. She and advocates again are pleading for governments to speed up access to safe supply. The province says it's doing what it can while waiting for Ottawa to decide on criminalization. Mira Baines has our top story tonight.
BC's chief coroner paints a bleak picture.
Today we will lose 6 more people. Tomorrow we will lose 6 more people. And by Christmas we'll have lost another 40 or 50 members of our communities. And that is just not acceptable any longer.
In the first 10 months of this year alone, deaths due to opioid overdoses have surpassed the deaths from 2020, which was a record year. The coroner warns the province could see more than 2,000 people die this year, largely because of a more toxic supply.
The 201 deaths due to drug toxicity in October represent the largest loss of life experienced in a single month in the toxic drug crisis.
The solution, she says, urgently expanding the supply of safe drugs, but some doctors are hesitant in writing prescriptions.
We don't have time to wait months and years to continue to look for evidence that safe supply would work.
Both of Helen Jennings' sons died from opioid use. She says her son Tyler died using tainted drugs.
Had he had a safe supply, he might still be alive. And being alive means you can actually start to get help and look at a system of recovery.
The minister in charge admits government needs to do more.
We are so grateful for the people that are stepping forward, prescribing safe supply. And I know everybody's tired, but we are asking, again, people in healthcare and all of our health authorities to do more.
Another solution, the province has applied to Health Canada to see small amounts of drugs decriminalized.
Until and unless the government listens to us, it's not going to change.
Advocates blame a lack of political will.
I'm on methadone, and over the last year and a half, I've tried to get a bunch of people onto safe supply. It's extremely difficult.
He says until he sees big changes, the government is only paying lip service. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
And coming up, we're going to speak with BC's Minister of Mental Health and Addictions, Sheila Malcolmson, and ask what she is doing to push Ottawa for crucial changes. A provincial social worker says she has been put on unpaid leave even though she's fully vaccinated against COVID-19. For weeks, she has not been able to access the QR code proving she's had her shots. As Michelle Gassoub tells us, she says she's got no support from the province to fix the mistake that has left her jobless.
This is what comes up.
And how many times a day do you input your information?
4, multiple times a day.
A technical glitch has sent social worker Sheena Shalata's life into a tailspin. She's received 2 doses of the Pfizer vaccine as mandated by her workplace, but the QR code proving she's vaccinated has been unavailable for 5 weeks.
I was advised because I wasn't showing the required proof of vaccination that I would be laid off with no pay as of November 23rd.
The BC Public Service where Shalata works mandated vaccines in early October and wouldn't accept her paper record of vaccination.
In my letter, it's kind of confusing because it says I'm vaccinated, but then is laying me off for not being vaccinated. So, yeah, I don't think that's very reasonable.
For weeks, she's been navigating a bureaucratic nightmare, trying to access the electronic document that would let her get back to work.
I just feel like I'm chasing, and it's like I'm not getting any resolution. Yeah, I'm a single mom. I start to worry about being able to pay my rent.
Salata has contacted the BC Vaccine Card Helpline, Service BC, her local MLA, and has even tried to go back to the clinic where she was vaccinated to try to get this issue resolved. The province said it is a very uncommon problem, but they wouldn't comment on how many people are in the same situation. Shalata says if her vaccine information isn't made available soon, she risks losing her car and housing.
And I just wish there could be some kind of resolution, because, you know, it's right before Christmas. I've got my kid and I'm really, really trying hard to keep it together.
The only thing she hopes for ahead of the holidays, to be able to download that code that will let her return to work.
And Michelle Gassoub joins us now. Michelle, you broke this story this morning on CBC Radio. You've received even more examples from people across BC since then.
Yeah, Dan, we've heard of at least 4 other people in the same situation. They haven't been able to download their QR code. Now, some of them say after weeks of delay, they eventually were able to get access. Others are still in that same situation, fighting to get their code.
So what does the government suggest people do if they're in a similar bind here?
The province says that you can contact Service BC. You can also call the BC Vaccine Card Helpline. Now, as you heard there, Shalata says she's already tried both of these options, and so far, no one has been able to access her code. Dan?
Michelle Gassoub, thanks very much. All this is while BC's vaccination campaign continues. Nearly 86% of eligible people 5 and older have now had a first dose. And more than 500,000 people have already received their 3rd shot. That's 12% of British Columbians now. Daily COVID infections are steady at about 341. 9 more people have died. And with Northern Health infections at about 29 today, that region's daily cases have dropped to almost a quarter of what they were 2 months ago. With transmissions dropping in the north, that health authority is relaxing some rules. That includes in-person worship services allowed once again. Faith-based indoor facilities can be at 50% capacity, but anyone over the age of 11 needs to be vaccinated. Vaccine cards are no longer required for outdoor services. When it comes to social gatherings, up to 10 fully vaccinated people can meet indoors, 25 outdoors. And venues can increase capacity to 50% with proof of vaccination again. Events held outside will no longer be capped at 100 people. We're now getting a closer look at the vast damage from the recent floods, as well as the efforts to rebuild many parts of our province. Public Safety Minister Mike Farnworth visited a hard-hit area of the interior today. The CBC's Zara Premji joins us live to walk us through what he saw. Zara.
Yeah, Dan, a first real glimpse into many parts of Merritt we hadn't properly seen since the floods sent that entire city out on an evacuation order just last month. Now, Minister Farnworth was able to see the level of the damage firsthand. As you can see, it's extensive. He was shown the new river, the channel that was born through the flood. It took down homes and showed no mercy to anything in its path.
Absolutely unbelievable. I mean, you look at the size of that concrete span and how the water just like ate the dirt away, and it just collapsed and has changed its course. The river's changed its course. It's like, no, it is absolutely unbelievable.
Makes you feel small.
Yeah, it makes you really realize that the power of water. It's incredible.
The wastewater treatment plant was knocked offline as well, and city officials explained to the minister it is still not fully up and running, with waste still flowing into the river. A jarring look at it for all and anyone who's been to that city before, Dan.
Yes, indeed, Zara. Now, we've also had some updates on highways in BC. Many of them were damaged. What's the latest there?
Well, some good news here, Dan. So the repair work on the Coquihalla Highway is actually going faster than expected. The province says the route could reopen for commercial traffic in early January, but until then, the province has strong advice for anyone thinking of driving to and from the interior for the holidays.
I would advise leisure travel to not happen. As I mentioned, intercity bus coaches will be operating on Highway 3, are operating on Highway 3. The airline industry will have updates. There's a significant amount of shifting of resources to add regional flights. There's a number of
Now be warned, if you do drive to or from the Okanagan, road checks are in place and you will not be able to get through unless essential. Fleming says a timeline to reopen Highway 1 through the Fraser Canyon remains mid-January as well. Now, once the Coquihalla reopens, non-essential travel may be allowed along Highway 3 through Princeton and Highway 99 through Pemberton. But Dan, while we're looking at the aftermath as well as the repairs, Emergency Management BC is also warning another storm is heading for several parts of the province tomorrow, which could pose further challenges in areas recovering from November's storms.
And we'll get an update on that from Johanna coming up. Zara Premji, thank you very much. The prized baseball training center in Abbotsford is among the many buildings damaged in the floods, but community members there are rallying to restore it and have raised tens of thousands of dollars. As John Hernandez shows us, it's a crucial hub for developing major league prospects.
It might be under snow now, but just 2 weeks ago, this baseball field was underwater.
It was, pretty much to the bottom of the scoreboard, and this whole field was a lake.
Abbotsford Cardinals coach Colton Bessie got the call that it was flooding on November 15th. He rushed over with shovels and tried to dig a trench around the team's indoor practice facility that's right beside the field. The water rushed in.
Kind of ran down almost this sidewalk here like it was a river.
It was soon under 2 meters of water.
There was baseballs scattered all over the place that had just floated around. We had put portable mounds, a couple feet off the ground that had floated across the facility. Even on the field, we had benches that floated from the infield to the outfield.
The facility and most of what was inside in shambles. It's a tough pill to swallow for the Cardinals club, which relies on the indoor spot to train in the winter.
I was pretty scared, actually. It was pretty tough to see the facility go down, and all of our training that we get to do, we're not able to do that anymore.
Shortstop Riley Quack says it's helped give players a competitive edge. Players from the Cardinals have gone on to play in the Major League, and well over 100 have received baseball scholarships.
Over the offseason, most players will kind of just tone down, whereas we keep working, and that's where we stand out.
But in the weeks since the flooding, an outpouring of community support. An online fundraiser has since raised nearly $60,000 to replace things like turf and training gear.
We got a lot of money and very quick, which was amazing to see, that people, cared about us and cared about these kids. Obviously, it's more than just baseball to them. 99% of the kids in our program are trying to get a scholarship for baseball.
With no structural damage, the team hopes to get back inside early next year so they can get back to regular training and produce future baseball stars. John Hernandez, CBC News, Abbotsford.
Meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe joins us now with the forecast. Joe, things are ramping up ahead of this latest storm that Zara was mentioning.
Yes, that's right. We already have warnings that have been upgraded from those special weather statements, particularly when it comes to the snow. I want to show you the storm on the satellite and radar for most of Metro Vancouver and Fraser Valley. This is going to be a rain and wind event, but you can already see that approaching system sliding down from the northwest. That's the cold front. They'll be tracking across the province over the next couple of days. Starting tonight, up towards Paris, inland sections of central and northern BC, we'll see 15 to 25 centimeters sliding down through the Sunshine Coast overnight into tomorrow morning. And there are the new warnings. Whistler, Howe Sound looking to get 15 to 20 centimeters. It'll change over to rain at about 500 meters. So you can see Howe Sound also under the rainfall warning in green. And then a special weather statement still in place for everyone in white. And that is for 30 to 60 millimeters of rain, plus 80 kilometer per hour winds. And that'll really ramp up Friday overnight into Saturday morning, even though we're going to start to get the rain mid-morning tomorrow. Also note the highway passes looking to get 30 centimeters of snow. So here's the bigger picture. That cold front approaching the coast for tomorrow morning. It's mid-morning, Dan, that we'll see the rain start for Metro Vancouver and the Fraser Valley. Those white lines, those are lines of equal pressure. And the closer they are together, the stronger the wind. So Friday night into Saturday morning, Dan, we'll be looking to see potential for damaging winds. And I'll time that out in a little more detail coming up.
Okay. Thanks very much, Joe.
You're welcome.
Burnaby RCMP want you to know the dangers of impaired driving firsthand as the holidays approach. Take a look. The force says this dash cam footage is from an impaired driver. You can see them struggling to keep a hold of the car. They're weaving across the center line. They even blow through a stop sign and a red light, narrowly missing other cars. Eventually, they smash into a fire hydrant. The driver received a 1-year driving ban and a $1,000 fine. On average, 16 people are killed and 830 injured in 1,500 impaired driving-related crashes in Metro Vancouver alone every year. After a year away, the big man in red is back in business. But Santa's ways are certainly a bit different this year. Anyone hoping to take a picture with him will have to follow some very strict rules in an effort to keep St. Nick and his helpers safe. As Philip Owira tells us, most people are happy with the new measures.
It's been 2 years since he decked the halls of CF Richmond Centre.
Merry Christmas. Ho, ho, ho.
Now Santa is back.
During COVID, I haven't seen Santa. I only saw Santa on my mom's phone for 2 years.
What'd you ask?
Lego.
What about you?
Godzilla.
Oh, Godzilla.
Gone are the days where you go to the mall and line up for a photo with Father Christmas. Now, you have to schedule an appointment to meet him. Once you get there, you're not allowed to touch, hug, or sit on his lap. Some establishments require children 12 and above to show proof of vaccination. Many people appear to be happy with the new rules.
We understand the situation, right? I mean, there's a lot of people in and out, so like once in a while, you know, a different setup, we don't mind it.
It's the first time I've seen that, and I think this is just excellent because you have so many good ideas, and it's more like a family photo. You can have a family and you can have everybody in. I think it's just beautiful.
The demand for a photo with Santa is high in Metro Vancouver, and in some places, slots are selling out fast. People are being encouraged to book their appointments early or risk another year without getting a chance to meet St. Nick.
Did you address it to Santa Claus? North Pole? Ho, ho, ho.
Philip Owira, CBC News, Vancouver.
If your grocery bill has been a bit heftier these days, brace yourself. Why food prices are rising at a record rate. That's next. Thank you for joining us on our commercial-free live stream tonight. Hello to everyone watching. It is a garment like no other. The Amsterdam rainbow dress carries a powerful message to countries around the world about LGBTQ persecution. As Sandra Adma shows us, the dress made its Canadian debut in Ottawa this week.
A cascade of brilliant color billows from the spiral staircase at the Canadian Museum of History. The Amsterdam rainbow dress has arrived in Canada, a spectacular gown with an ugly story behind it. The dress is fashioned from 71 international flags. Each flag represents a country where LGBTQ people are jailed, tortured, or even condemned to death. Trans rights advocate Alicia Kazobinka models the dress, as reps from the Netherlands Embassy act as her ladies-in-waiting.
Yeah, we were thinking what to do with it. And
Arnold van Krimpen is one of the garment's creators. He says it helps people understand how big the problem is.
You can tell them there's 71 countries in the world that criminalize me, but when they see how huge the dress is, they suddenly, you see the change happening. Oh my God, it's that many.
The Amsterdam rainbow dress is a viral sensation. It's been photographed in iconic locations around the world, worn by LGBTQ artists, models, and activists. When a country changes its anti-LGBTQ legislation, a rainbow is stitched in the place of the flag.
What we hope is that we have here the two rainbow flags, but imagine if it would be one big rainbow dress. Then you have a story to tell, right?
The Amsterdam rainbow dress dropped in at the National Gallery of Canada, making a spectacular impression as Ottawa drag queen and Canada's drag race contestant Isis Couture wore it with style. Next, it's off to Toronto's CN Tower, another stop on its colorful journey to raise awareness. Sandra Abma, CBC News, Ottawa.
Brace yourself for a surprise at the grocery store. The cost to feed the average Canadian family is expected to rise by about $1,000 next year, so says the Canada Food Price Report released today. Pandemic-related supply chain issues and severe weather are among the reasons listed. And as Nisha Patel reports, it's leaving many people struggling to put food on the table.
Nicola Moore knows how to stretch her grocery budget.
I understand food insecurity because I've suffered it myself.
For the single mother of 3, stocking the fridge this year took a lot of energy.
Worrying about where your next meal will come from and will it be filling and healthy for your kids.
Food costs are rising thanks to high energy prices and supply chain disruptions. Climate change-fueled wildfires and droughts also have an impact, all issues that are expected to drive prices up further in 2022.
Canadians will have to get used to higher food prices. We're not going to go back to how things were.
Facing sticker shock, more shoppers are looking for sales and are cutting back on pricier products.
You're going to make different decisions both at the grocery store and at the restaurant.
Wages haven't kept up with inflation so far. That means food affordability across the country could get worse.
Food bank visits have increased by more than 20% since 2019, a trend that's likely to continue in the new year.
Toronto chef Jagger Gordon says the pandemic pushed more people to the edge.
We just basically have seen so many people come to us and through other programs that say we need help.
His answer, starting a pay-what-you-can grocery store. It offers food that businesses would otherwise waste, like imperfect vegetables, and gives more fresh choice than a traditional food bank.
We divert food from landfills and we put it back onto the tables of millions.
Moore says programs like Gordon's are essential, but so are long-term solutions like higher minimum wage.
I think there's a huge population that is one paycheck away from getting evicted, one paycheck away from not being able to pay their bills.
And she hopes these conversations will spark a little food for thought. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
We know there are many people already struggling to make ends meet. Julia Wong shows us what rising food prices could mean for them and for the groups already trying to help.
Fatmata Briawa moved to Edmonton from Guinea 3 years ago as a refugee. Since then, the mother of 3 has noticed prices going up at the grocery store.
Before, the grocery is not expensive. Now everything is expensive.
Briawa receives government assistance and relies on this food hamper program for newcomers and refugees to get by. She also volunteers there. Rising prices worry her.
That I am not feeling good because it's not easy.
The Grocery Run program helps about 550 people every week.
Research have already shown us many people are working as hard as they can, barely pay rent, and therefore no adequate budget for food.
Over at this Edmonton food bank, work is steady. Food banks have been busier during the pandemic, and now they're bracing themselves for the impact rising food costs will have on demand. The executive director says many clients are low income or on fixed incomes and may not be able to set aside an extra $1,000 to pay for groceries.
What we expect to see at the food bank
is that people who are needing the services of the food bank might need us more frequently, or if somebody's just been on the edge of using the food bank, those people might need us a few times.
With rising costs, dollars will need to stretch. Experts have some tips recommending people plan out their meals, write grocery lists, and rethink their proteins.
Our meat portions, our protein portions don't need to be as large as what we think, and I think from what I'm reading, people are realizing that.
Brioa knows how hard these price increases will hit for her and those like her who are already worried about putting food on the table. Julia Wong, CBC News, Edmonton.
As we've seen far too often in this province, the number of people killed by poison drugs in BC is staggering. And again, the calls for more action to stop these deaths continue. So what more is the province doing right now? BC's Minister of Mental Health and Addictions, Sheila Malcolmson, joins us now. Minister, the Chief Coroner, Lisa Lapointe, is calling for an immediate response from all governments to expand safe supply. Your government has started that, but she says it's too limited, too many barriers, it must move faster. How will you do that specifically?
It's a terrible day again, the worst numbers that we've ever heard from the coroner. It's leaders like her that helped encourage, along with Dr. Bonnie Henry and other science and medical leaders in the province, for us in March 2020 to start Canada's first prescribed safe supply program.
Minister, respectfully, Minister, what are you doing right now specifically to speed up the process that she is calling for? And she's called for this several times now.
Yeah, so our July expansion of prescribed safe supply was exactly in response to what we heard from practitioners on the ground and people who use drugs, that they needed more access points and needed more medications available on the menu of what was available. We've directed every health authority to embed it into their programs, precisely because we can't afford to have any interference or any delays in people getting access. We wish this could move faster, and we're working every day to push it out as fast as we can. Already, we've had a 475% increase in the number of people connected with Safe Supply, but we're determined to get a lot more.
Now, Coroner Lapointe also said that health authorities doing their best to roll out Safe Supply. In some regions, though, there is outright hostility and opposition. What are you doing to address those concerns specifically?
We're trying to hit this from all fronts. Part of it is asserting again and again, and whether that's through TV ads or through our decriminalization application, that this is a healthcare challenge, trying to combat that stigma. But the health authorities are agents of the province. We've directed them to do the work. And it doesn't matter what kind of hostility they encounter, they have got the ability to deliver healthcare services. Addictions treatment and prevention of overdose is part of the healthcare system, and we won't accept barriers to it. It's up to us to push that ahead, and that's what we're doing.
And Minister, your government and the City of Vancouver have applied to the federal government to decriminalize the possession of small amounts of illicit drugs for personal use. Your federal counterpart, Carolyn Bennett, says they're looking at these proposals. What are you doing to get an answer from the federal government as soon as possible on this?
We've met twice on this since Carolyn Bennett was appointed, and I'm really encouraged that the federal government has mirrored our establishment of a standalone ministry to focus on these issues alone. They have not identified any barriers to approval, and so we are expecting the feds to approve this on an urgent basis so we can move forward with implementation. But decrim alone will not combat the toxic drug crisis. We're adding hundreds. We've already added hundreds of new treatment beds. We're adding hundreds more. Prescribing safe supply, giving nurses the ability to prescribe medication-assisted treatment. We're trying everything to save lives at this really terrible time.
Sheila Malcolmson, thank you for your time today.
Thanks, Dan.
How did Canada respond to the COVID-19 crisis? A new Auditor General's report points out some major failures. We'll tell you what they were next.
By all appearances, today was like any other for Prince Charles. Looking confident and relaxed, he spent the morning with business executives in Wales.
Who's this anyway?
400 kilometres away, Princess Diana cheerfully chatted to crowds in the north of England. There was no sign there was soon to be a dramatic announcement about the royal marriage.
Buckingham Palace are at this moment issuing the following statement. It reads as follows. It is announced from Buckingham Palace that with regret, the Prince and Princess of Wales have decided to separate. Their Royal Highnesses have no plans to divorce, and their constitutional positions are unaffected. This decision has been reached amicably, and they will both continue to participate fully in the upbringing of their children.
I think we're all devastated and very sad for everybody concerned. We just wish them well in their separate lives.
Well, it's very sad news, and I don't think any of us are really particularly surprised, but it does seem so sad for the children, doesn't it?
I, Diana Francis,
Hi, Johanna Francis.
take thee, Charles Philip Arthur George.
There was to be no happy ending to this fairy tale marriage. In 1981, Charles and Diana seemed like the perfect couple, ideally suited and so in love. They started a family and presented an outward picture of marital bliss. But soon the cracks began to appear. There were rumors that the two had little in common. There were even stories the prince preferred playing polo to spending time with his wife and children. Princess Diana started looking strained. Royal watchers wrote about a marriage that was falling apart. Early this year, on a royal visit to India, Diana publicly embarrassed her husband when she avoided his kiss.
That was the moment that told everybody that she hated him.
As the couple spent more and more time apart, the rumors kept growing. And in June this year, a book about Diana claimed the fairy tale marriage had turned into a nightmare. With today's announcement, there's no longer any need to pretend.
Well, I think in these modern times, I think they've probably made the right decision. I myself am divorced.
If they're unhappy, there's no point in them carrying on the way they are. And it's obvious to most people that they are unhappy, so I don't see any point in them carrying on.
Today's announcement says that while the royal couple will separate, the line to the throne remains intact.
The decision to separate has no constitutional implications. The succession to the throne is unaffected by it. The children of the Prince and Princess retain their position in the line of succession, and there is no reason why the Princess of Wales should not be crowned Queen in due course.
The last time the royal couple was seen together in public was 2 days ago at a gala evening. Today's announcement means that they will continue to make such appearances, but from now on, their lives will be publicly together, privately apart. Anne McMillan, CBC News, London.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
Christmas with Corleone returns with a joyful collection of luminous candlelit carols and holiday favorites December 17th to 20th. Celebrate the season and get your tickets at corleone.org. And never miss a special programming series or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter at cbc.ca/Vancouver inbox and keep connected with us.
Here are some of the stories we're following tonight for you on CBC Vancouver News.
Today we will lose 6 more people. Tomorrow we will lose 6 more people. And by Christmas we'll have lost another 40 or 50 members of our communities. And that is just not acceptable any longer.
Until and unless the government...
It is getting even worse. BC's chief coroner says more people died from poison drugs in October than any other month, 201. She's pleading for a faster rollout of safe supply, but says some regions and healthcare professionals are reluctant to get on board. Advocates say governments are not moving fast enough, and that will cost more lives. The province says it is working with Ottawa on the push for decriminalizing small amounts of drugs for personal use.
I'm a single mom. I start to worry about being able to pay my rent. I had to take out my savings.
Provincial social worker is living a bureaucratic nightmare that she fears will cost her her home. Sheena Shalati says she's been put on unpaid leave even though she's fully vaccinated against COVID. She hasn't been able to access her QR code, proving she's got the shots, and says the BC Public Service won't accept her paper record. She's had no luck with Service BC, the vaccine card helpline, her MLA, the clinic where she got her shots, or her union.
Yeah, I would advise leisure travel to not happen. As I mentioned, intercity bus coaches will be operating on Highway 3, are operating on Highway 3. The airline industry will have updates. There's a significant amount of shifting of resources to add regional flights.
And BC's Transportation Minister is asking people thinking about driving between the Lower Mainland and the interior this holiday season to park it. Despite major progress on repairing parts of the crippled Coquihalla, Highway 3 is very busy with trucks, and Rob Fleming says it's vital that single open route stay clear. New reports from Canada's Auditor General point out two key failures in Ottawa's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. As Rafi Boudjikanian tells us, the government did not enforce pandemic protocols for travelers or temporary foreign workers.
If they're going to put in a requirement, they really do need to have worked through how to monitor and enforce that requirement.
And that's a criticism on multiple fronts. The Auditor General's office says the Public Health Agency of Canada failed to set up an automated way to verify if air travelers returning to Canada were complying with mandatory quarantine orders, and was only able to check up on the whereabouts of a quarter of them.
I'm concerned that the agency is unable to show us whether or not these border measures are effective border measures.
The agency also didn't follow up on nearly 60% of cases it referred to law enforcement for non-compliance. All this just days after the Omicron variant had Ottawa mandate most international air travelers test and self-isolate pending results, while passengers in airports say they don't have the capacity to do all that.
As the Auditor General has noted, the government's response has been far from perfect. We acknowledge this, and we are making no excuses for it. We can and we must do better.
Health isn't the only department targeted by the Auditor General. It also found Employment Canada failed to keep temporary foreign workers in the agri-food sector safe. Employees complaining of a lack of food if they were in COVID isolation or not being given adequate space to keep 2 meters apart. Government inspectors relying on the word of employers.
Rest assured that we will do better to ensure that bad actors are punished and that temporary foreign workers have safe and healthy workplaces.
This was actually the second time the Auditor General found problems with both quarantine hotels as well as the safety of temporary foreign workers, saying she's disappointed some lessons learned have yet to be implemented as the world approaches the second anniversary of the pandemic. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
There has been a big spike in COVID cases in Quebec just before the holidays. Infections have been on a steady rise since October, with another 1,800 reported today. Only hospitalizations have remained level, but as Alison Northcott shows us, somewhere that could change.
Rena Almonetta Chang is planning a low-key holiday season, hoping Quebec's rise in cases doesn't turn into something worse.
Maybe more plans than last winter, but still kind of on the quiet side. Yeah, like no huge parties.
It makes me nervous. I am also watching hospitalizations and ICU, and that seems to be at least mostly stable, but we're watching really carefully.
Quebec's health minister says this was expected.
We're okay so far, but I'm insisting on the people that are not vaccinated. The kids and the 70 and above, they should go for their third dose as quickly as possible.
The latest data shows cases have increased nearly 30% since last week. So far, hospitalizations and deaths have not risen as quickly, and some experts hope that's a sign this holiday season will be different than last year's.
1,800 cases last winter was a disaster because the elderly and the at-risk people were infected and they were very sick. This is not what we're seeing right now. People are not that sick because they're a lower risk group.
The message is to not forget that the pandemic is still there.
This doctor is watching nervously as projections show hospitalizations could go up.
Knowing that we're short-staffed and tired, the impact of an increase of COVID hospitalizations and ICU occupancy rate might take a toll on the system out of proportion to the actual number.
This all comes just days after the province said it will loosen restrictions for holiday gathering, allowing up to 20 people to get together inside. The push now, getting kids the shot.
When you look at what the mathematical modelers have been proposing, they're saying that if a large proportion of children 5 to 11 are able to get their first dose before the Christmas holidays,
that will dampen the potential surge after the holidays.
A surge experts hope to avoid, especially with the uncertainty around the new Omicron variant. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
The damage done by the storms and floods in this province are still being assessed. BC Parks doesn't even know how bad it is in some areas. We're going to hear from the warden next. And at 6:39, a live look at Victoria in the Inner Harbour. Cold and clear tonight, but a big storm system is heading our way. Again, Johanna breaks down what to expect and the risks involved with this latest system. Stick around.
In the year 2050, how will BC look? From agriculture to cities, how will climate change change life? Don't miss 2050 Degrees of Change, a CBC Vancouver original podcast, now available.
We're getting a better sense of the flood damage in places like Sumas Prairie, Princeton, and Merritt. But when it comes to cleaning up BC's campgrounds and parks in the region, it could be months before the full extent of destruction becomes clear. At the moment, several provincial parks on the south coast are closed, including Cultus Lake, Sasquatch, Skagit Valley, Manning, and Coquihalla Canyon, where the Othello tunnels are located. Making things even more challenging, rangers have not been able to set foot in most of these parks because road access is still cut off. Highway 3 is limited to essential travel, and Highways 1 and 5 are still impassable. Increasingly, BC Parks is recognizing the need to prepare for extreme weather and mitigate the risks of climate change. Rob Wilson is an area supervisor for the South Fraser area. He joins us from Chilliwack. Rob, first of all, you've been to Cultus Lake and seen the damage. We've seen images of picnic areas covered in gravel and stream banks washed out. How bad is it, and what is it going to take to clean it up?
In the case of Cultus Lake Provincial Park, there is quite a bit of damage. It's damage that has occurred over a fairly widespread area, but the majority of the damage is focused on a day use area called the Maple Bay Day Use Area. In the park there, we have a debris flood issue where we've had gravels washed into our day use area. It's covering up picnic tables and covering up garbage cans, and there's probably 10,000 plus cubic meters of gravel that's washed into the day use area, and it's going to take us quite a bit of work to clean it up.
And what is preventing your team from accessing, for example, other parks in the region right now?
So, as you're well aware, our region has received significant impacts from the recent storm event, and as a result, there are many roads that are closed. Some roads are completely washed out, and as such, we're unable to access all of our protected areas.
Now, I know you haven't been to Coquihalla Canyon yet, but what can you tell us about the state of the Othello tunnels?
Yeah, so it seems Othello tunnels has been heavily impacted by this recent flood event. We know that the tunnels themselves, the first two tunnels, had the river rise up to the point where the river was actually washing through the tunnels. So we've lost all of the gravel that is the walking surface for the public to gain access to the tunnels in those first two tunnels, as well as the pathway that leads towards the tunnels. And in addition to that, we've seen a lot of the rockfall protection measures that are in place to keep the public safe damaged.
Sounds like a huge amount of damage. What can be done to mitigate the impacts of climate change on BC parks?
Yeah, that's a great question, super relevant. The recent flooding and fire events clearly demonstrate that that climate change is happening to us right now. And the provincial preliminary climate risk assessment identified that there were risks to BC Parks infrastructure. So as we're preparing for climate change, we really want to ensure that new projects in BC Parks, as well as our recovery efforts, take into consideration where and how we build to reduce those impacts of climate change and to support the visitor experience.
And quickly, Rob, what's your message to people who are even thinking of going to parks on the South Coast right now?
For us, our first responders, our contractors that are out there working so tirelessly to rebuild our facilities, they really need to be able to concentrate on that work. And as such, we're asking for the public to really carefully consider the risk that they're undertaking when they're visiting BC's backcountry right now, and take an extra degree of caution. We don't know what hazards are out there. We do know that in the Fraser Valley, for example, a lot of the streams have eroded stream banks and undercut bank edges, and there are other hazards out there. So we just ask people to use an extra degree of caution as they're recreating in the area, and try to keep themselves safe so that we can allow our first responders and other folks that are working to put our infrastructure back together to focus on that important effort.
Rob Wilson with BC Parks, thank you for joining us.
You bet.
Meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe joins us now with the forecast. Joe, incredible stories and horrific footage. BC Parks reeling after these storms. We still don't know the full damage assessment. And now we have another storm. What's in store this time?
Yes, luckily, Dan, this one not looking to be an atmospheric river, and it's sort of in line with the La Nina forecast we have in place. However, power outages, minor flooding, and big winter driving conditions all possible with this storm that's sliding down from Alaska as we speak. Let me take you through, first of all, the current temperatures. You can see the cold air in place across the south coast. hovering around the freezing mark for parts of Sunshine Coast, Nanaimo, a 4 in through YVR, and a little cooler out towards the Fraser Valley. So cold air is in place above about 500 meters. I think that's where the snow line will be over the next 36 hours. Let me take you through the snow forecast. It's really going to ramp up tomorrow late afternoon, evening for the sea to sky and east through the Fraser Canyon. Pausing you Saturday 6 p.m. Look at the incredible snow amounts we're talking about. The light purples, that's getting close to 80 centimeters for some of our local mountains. Whistler is going to see some of those highest amounts, and then the locals as well, above, again, 1,000 meters. So big snow event coming through to Saturday. And, you know, just listening to BC Parks, taking that same advice, many of our access points aren't accessible right now, but, you know, we're looking at very serious snowfall for the backcountry as well. Taking a look at the forecast for tomorrow across the interior, both seasonal for temperatures. We're seeing some sunshine in the Kootenays. And of course, this is a big snow event for inland sections. And the snow will hop over to places like Pine Pass, Highway 3, and Elk Valley over the next 48 hours. Okay, breaking our forecast down in through Metro Vancouver. It is going to be very wet and windy Friday overnight into Saturday morning. And I really want to hone in tomorrow on those winds. Right now, it looks like the peak will be early Saturday morning, but we may continue to see strong wind gusts through to early afternoon hours. I've had a lot of people ask me, you know, about holiday plans, outdoor holiday plans on Saturday. We could be seeing gusts over 70 kilometers per hour across Metro Vancouver through much of Saturday. So I'll keep you posted on that. Winds easing for Sunday. We'll see some pulses of moisture. Monday night could also see some pulses of snow as temperatures dip down. And we will definitely need that break, Dan, that will come hopefully midweek next week.
Yeah, no kidding. Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
Once a symbol of rebellion and Hollywood glamour, cigarettes have fallen out of favor. Smoking rates have plummeted around the world, but New Zealand is now moving aggressively to make sure future generations never light up. Here's Thomas Dagla on how that country is butting out for good.
It's a health hazard and a taboo habit, but around the world, smoking rates remain stubbornly higher than anti-tobacco advocates would hope. Now, from New Zealand, a plan for the whole country to butt out.
We want to make sure young people never start smoking, so we are legislating for a smoke-free generation.
New Zealand's smoke-free action plan may be the boldest in the world, barring anyone 14 and under from ever buying cigarettes, even later in life, cutting the number of stores allowed to sell tobacco, and reducing the amount of addictive nicotine allowed in cigarettes. Just the kind of measures Canadian advocates have been demanding for years.
The reduction in the number of deaths and disease caused by cigarettes is certainly an enormous win for public health.
In New Zealand, as in Canada, smoking remains the leading cause of preventable death. 11% of New Zealanders light up daily. The government releasing its message in the Maori language too, with a much bigger proportion of the indigenous population still smoking. Professor Becky Freeman was raised in Alberta and studied tobacco control in New Zealand for years.
You find that other nations adopt these laws as well. It's exactly what happened when Canada was the first country in the world in the early 2000s to put graphic warnings on cigarette packs. We have now over 100 nations around the world that have those graphic health warnings.
Though for owners of corner stores, tobacco remains a major source of income, and already they're warning.
It looks like a prohibition, and we know that prohibition has never worked. The gangs and criminals will fill the gap.
New Zealand's plan still has to be adopted and will take years to implement. Supporters say it's a start and could lead to change far beyond those islands. Thomas Dagg, CBC News, Toronto.
It's a strategic supply of the sticky kind, while Quebecers are tapping into their maple syrup reserve. Next.
My name is Henry Vanderspeck, and I'm a Toronto documentary photographer. So Old World Shoes is a documentary project sharing about older and independent shoe and shoe repair stores of Toronto. I started in late 2017. I was just thinking, who celebrates these little businesses that disappear when a redevelopment happens in a neighborhood. I did start with a sense of nostalgia, that these are places that are so unique and they're going to disappear. But I was intentional about finding businesses that are a bit newer, that are still around and doing something creative and innovative, because I wanted to show that all is not lost. People are still putting some creativity into this field. I hope people will take away a sense of value for local small businesses, not just shoe stores and shoe repair stores that are, those unique one-off places, but also all kinds of craftsmen, artisans, people who run independent businesses. They bring so much passion and energy and drive to make those businesses happen. We get something out of it, especially if we support them, shop there over years. We build a connection, we build human empathy, and we share stories, and we get something that's of a quality we really can't get in other types of places. I chose Phil's shoe service because he had been referred to me by one of the businesses in Corso Italia, another one that I'd gone to. And when I got there, the visuals, of course, are what I love when I go to these places. There's just so much going on in these small shops. And then he had a great story as well. So I was really happy when he welcomed me and let me speak with him.
Hi there, I'm Phil from Phil's Shoe Repair. Since 1954, my grandfather came here to Canada and started working as a cobbler and opened up his own business. And from there, my father took over his business, and I'm the third generation. I took over my father and my grandfather's business. You definitely got to have a heart. That's what I learned, because if you don't have a heart, you can see the job never comes as good. But if you have a heart and you're happy, the boot looks amazing. You got to see some of my customers when they come in, how happy they are. You feel like a doctor. That's why they call me the shoe doctor too sometimes. But that's what it is. You see the person much healthier, better. It's like the shoe. All of a sudden you see the shoe in better shape and everything's like, you did a good job, and deep down inside it's like good. And then you know that you tried their hardest and it made the job come amazing.
This must feel like home for you.
Yeah, definitely home. A lot of memories. I don't know, it's hard for me to say. I don't want to get too emotional, but it's hard. I see him every day, my grandfather, my father. Sometimes when I'm stuck, I always ask for advice, and that's why I would never touch it. I leave it the way it was. This is the way it should stay. It's hard to work with parents, but it's amazing because I got all those memories and to work side by side, But it's a little bit sometimes emotional, right? We hang in there, right? Because they're watching us. Sorry, I'm getting a little too...
There are strategic reserves of oil, gas, helium, and in a truly Canadian twist, there is a strategic reserve of maple syrup, don't you know? It's in Quebec, and producers in the province are letting it flow. Sarah Levitt gets a taste of why.
Welcome to Laurierville, a small, unassuming town about a 2 hours drive from Montreal. It's got its church, its bank, its library, and its maple syrup emergency reserve. Wait, what? That's right, the world's only emergency supply of that oh-so-sweet sticky stuff.
As you can see, we're not out of syrup.
It's a strategic move by Quebec maple syrup producers to ensure no Canadian ever has to deal with a lack of syrup at the breakfast table.
We take syrup off the market when it's in the surplus, when there's no home for it. We put it in the white barrels here. We store it, and when it comes time, we have a year like this year where sales went up, production went down a bit, we're able to fill the market.
Every single one of these barrels has about 272 kilos of maple syrup inside. I've done a little bit of math, and that's the equivalent of about 400 cans. With all these barrels, that sure is a lot of maple syrup. About 45 million kilograms in all, say the producers. They're tapping into about half of it after a less than stellar year of production. It's a significant chunk from the reserve, but producers say it's serving its purpose.
I feel that next December when we talk, people will still be putting maple syrup on their pancakes. Okay. I don't believe we're going to have to resort to Aunt John Mimer or corn syrup.
Oh, and don't worry, there won't be any maple syrup heist from this warehouse.
What's security like here?
I wouldn't try and break in. That's all I'll say.
Sarah Levitt, CBC News, Laurierville.
Good advice. Finally, Port Coquitlam City Hall let a surprise visitor sneak into the building Tuesday morning. Who would have guessed it? A northern saw-whet owl. The tiny bird flew inside, hitting a window. The bylaw team then called OWL, yes, the Orphaned Wildlife Rehabilitation Society, for some help. Their bird experts took her in for a health assessment, then released her into a wooded area just before dark that same day. What a head-turner. Thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News. You can always watch our program on our free app, CBC Gem, as well as YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, and on our website, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is tonight at 11 o'clock, right after the National with Zara Premji, and Isabel Wergam will be here for you tomorrow at 6. Good night.